Hey everybody, we are still backstage here at Hudson Yards at the Brand Innovators Evolution of Retail and Commerce Summit, the first of many. I'm sitting down with Seiya Vogt, the head of marketing at 30 Madison, and we're going to talk a bit about your world.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So, before we get into it, tell us about 30 Madison.
Yeah, of course. So 30 Madison is a platform that we're building to help people with chronic conditions. And so that can run the gamut between higher acuity, sort of more medically complex conditions like migraines, all the way to lower acuity, less medically complex conditions like hair loss. And we do this by creating specialized brands that sort of target that particular niche. So we have Cove, our migraines brand, Keeps, our hair loss brand, Nurex is our women's health brand. And so we really try to think about like how can we expand access to care, especially in this world where sort of medical treatments and things like that are just raising in terms of the cost to the consumer and things like that. We really try to break that down. And so we do that by creating, again, a one sort of full platform and full experience for that patient, and not just like an easy way to get medications, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually plays in well into my first question, which I've been asking to a lot of our community members and speakers today. Is we're 3 years now from the origins of the pandemic, and being in the health and wellness space, and being a D2C provider in that space puts you maybe in a unique position, having a more unique experience than say selling pet food or soup or whatever else it might be. So I'm curious, now 3 years removed from the onset, what have you learned about people, about shopping, about consumer behaviors? Like, what have you learned, and how can it be applied to what you do moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's probably been like two pieces that we've learned from this, right? Like, one is that obviously, telehealth in general prior to the pandemic was a very, very small fraction. I think I was reading some reports where it was not even like a percentage of all medical visits. After the pandemic, there are things where you probably don't want to go to a doctor, then to a pharmacy, then to get all those questions answered for your hair loss, when you can do that all online, right? And so like that's an example of something that we've seen sort of huge boons for during the pandemic, because there were people who again had medical needs but couldn't maybe didn't feel comfortable with going in, or wanted to find an alternate solution given the world had shut down. So I think that has helped at least educate the space of what these telemedicine sort of solutions exist, which has helped us really like kickstart things in the past 3 years in terms of our own growth. However, it doesn't sustain, right? Like we know we're kind of getting back to normal. Like I travel sort of to Japan fairly recently, where everyone's still wearing their masks, but you come back here and I don't know, it's like you and I are talking like this, or you see this restaurant out there that everyone's just sitting and sort of acting as if it's normal, right? And so the need for telehealth has definitely gone down. It's still sustained higher than it was previously, but we really have to, we can't rely just on sort of the market trends, right? You have to think about what are the creative solutions to reach your customer, especially in this day and age. And I would say even maybe more impactful than sort of the pandemic to some degree is all the different sort of privacy concerns and security sort of issues that are arising when you have companies like Facebook sort of not able to get as many signals as they used to with iOS changes and things like that, right? And so you're in this different world where things are a lot more digital than they used to be. However, you can't forget about the creativity to reach your consumer, but then also sort of understand all the different more technical elements of like, again, how to reach that consumer in a sort of strategic way. So there's been a lot of those factors, I think, has been that we've really had to think about like as the pandemic has progressed.
Oh, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense, and certainly, right, you're in a unique position. But to your point, like you can't rely on what happened then to sustain you moving forward. So that's really helpful. Thank you. So let's again continue where this is going, because we just I don't know. I don't want to say we finished marketing through the pandemic, but we've kind of moved from one now into marketing through economic question marks, right? Yeah. Whatever that means, the uncertainty that people talk about. There's recessions, there's inflations, maybe there's both, maybe there's one. there's just a lot of question marks, and it changes the way people behave, and it changes the way brands can market themselves. So I'm curious, what does it mean for you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a tough time for many people, right? And if you think about the healthcare space, even more so, right? Just given the increase of cost that people are saying. I mean, you're seeing like articles pop out of how I don't know, the CEOs of pharmaceutical companies are like continuing to raise medication costs even during the pandemic, right? And so I think like one way that we've really tried to tackle that is understand where the consumer is coming from, and think about how we can provide access at a much more affordable rate, to these patients that are trying to go through things that are ultimately like pretty life-changing, right? And sort of being really leaning into being their partner and sort of a trusted resource that they can go to. There's a lot of, if you think about like some conditions like hair loss or birth control or et cetera that we're in, there's a lot of misinformation that exists. And so thinking through both how to sort of better create that emotional connection to a patient, I think has been a really key part of like how we've evolved our marketing as the pandemic has progressed, and again sort of be that trusted resource for someone who might have limited funds, honestly, and choosing something that is so personal to them with their own health, right? And so I think that's like one piece that we've really tried to lean more into. And then the second sort of area that for us we're really thinking about is, again, this might not be the highest need for someone, right? So hair loss, as an example, you may find it, and we've done a lot of research to sort of think about what goes through people's minds. It is a very sort of emotional time at times, because this might be the first sign of aging for certain patients, right? This might be they look at their dad and they go, oh my God, my dad's bald and I don't necessarily want to lose my hair, so how can I tackle this, right? But at the same time, is it more important than the roof over their head or their food or their basic necessities, some of those things? Maybe not, maybe so, right? And so for us to, again, sort of connect with that consumer and help them, it may not be the right time now, but as soon as they feel comfortable, we're the solution for that they can reach out to, has been a really sort of key part in that process. And then also trying to listen to our consumers and understand their own needs, right? So they might, have, say, birth control as a necessity, but if they're thinking about treating another condition, how can we, again, sort of create the right patient experience for them to sort of treat something else through us as well? Might be something to think about, like as we are sort of going in through, instead of just relying on acquiring new customers, as we know, which can be so much more expensive. So I think like those are some of the ways in which we're kind of thinking about it and drilling it down.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So let's kind of move into something maybe a little bit lighter hearted.
Yeah.
Trends, right? It's January of 2023,
yeah, of course.
And everybody's talking about the trends, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are you paying attention to? Are there any big industry trends?
Yeah.
Maybe it's in new technologies, consumer behaviors, just general marketing approaches. Like, what's top of mind for you as you're planning for the year?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a ton of stuff, as you can imagine, but being a D2C player, especially, more sort of startup kind of, again, I hate to use the cliche, but trying to disrupt the market a little bit. We are thinking about like how to pivot, especially when so many brands are over-reliant on more traditional sort of marketing channels, right? So I always say this with my team, but how do we think about not being so heavily reliant on these algorithmic-based platforms like a Facebook or a Google, where again, you don't have that much control over the spend that you put on the table, right? How do you think about sort of other factors of that in relation to the data that they provide or don't provide anymore, right? And so for me, a huge trend that I'm thinking of is how to, like, the access to data, the loss of, first-party, third-party signals, with all these different platforms, and then how do you sort of take all the different signals that you're getting from these third-party platforms, your own first-party data, and then combine that into something that's like usable and workable as you expand your marketing mix, is like a huge problem that I think we're all trying to face and sort of evolve and really sort of drill down into, especially as more and more companies are leaning into more of your personal security, right? In general, right, like you really have to think about how best you can use your own data as well as the limited signals that you might get elsewhere, and evolve your marketing strategy to and get more sophisticated in that arena. And I think that's a big area in the space that I'm excited about and keeping a close eye on, especially as we get into this year.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Seiya, for joining us. And like I said, this is going to be the first of a big series for us all around retail and commerce. So we hope to have you back again soon.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.